This is the first part in a series where I'll be covering all CC5 enemies in detail for both a low risk and high risk context. Pincer beasts are only a real issue once you get into high risk for this map, and if you're attempting minimum or low risk, pretty much everything works, hence the section for that will be relatively short. For risk 18 and slightly beyond that as well, a slower such as Bodenko or Orchid would solo handle them just fine, but they may require some skill timing at lower levels of E1. In terms of non-slow options, Pinecone does a surprisingly good job there, up to around risk 24 or 25 where she begins to struggle. There's an interesting Thorns placement there which easily takes care of the crabs while also allowing him to focus on the middle lane, but that's not generally advised due to left side having higher priority for your DPS due to, well, the knight spawning there first. To be honest, these crabs up to risk 22 can be tanked and beaten with pretty much every unit, so the main focus is to spend as little resources as possible on them. Keep in mind that this is not even close to being a major threat in this stage, so I would suggest against busting out the mountain or weedy if you're doing low risk. For high risk, this is where it gets interesting. Below risk 30, the most brain dead option is mountain because you can solo the crab lane with very little RNG, which is usually considered the easiest choice. You also don't have to bother with skill activation, retreat and redeploy, etc, etc. The other options mentioned later will also work, especially for risk 30 and risk 31, but mountain is generally considered superior in lower risk due to the cheap cost, the lack of insane RNG melding, and single deploy slot. For the options at risk 30, it's a split between Weedy, Shrots, and Cowstead. All of them in my opinion have downsides, and they are all significantly harder to set up than Mountain, which is why I recommend against it if you're attempting, say, risk 28. But this section will be very beneficial to learn about what to do if you lack them. Schwartz is for risk 30 only. Using her skill 2 is somewhat RNG based, and the M3 on that is pretty unorthodox, so you won't likely have it even if you own her. To begin with, a backstar is usually used due to DP risk alongside a Chimera to charge door, but that's mostly irrelevant for damage rise in the crab lane. You'll notice that once you've secured left side, DP will be pretty scarce and crabs will already be coming in, so Weedy is a necessity, using her cannon to stall the crabs long enough to deploy Shrots and let her charge S2, and once you have her S2 active, it's still not smooth sailing. The crab that comes right before the first Blade Helm caster on the right side can't be killed in time for S2M3 duration, but thankfully that's also where you place another burst in it like Surtur to take down the Blade Helm caster, which can help with the crabs as well. Something important to take note is that Schwartz at level 90 requires a completely different strategy which involves more potentials than a Schwartz at level 70 due to debuff casters targeting her and forcing her from killing the crab instead of targeting Weedy. For Cowstead, it's also risk 30 only, but Cow S2 is significantly harder to use than any other option stated due to 6 deploy limit risk and Cow monster requiring 2, forcing a more dynamic playstyle involving very precise timings and abusing monsters' fast redeployment time. I don't have a ton of research on runs involving her, but you can treat her as a Schwartz S2 in terms of timing, since the downtime on Schwartz S2 is roughly similar to monsters' redeployment time, allowing you to squeeze a burst in it for the first caster and 1 to 2 crabs. The main benefit, however, is that Cowt can actually be useful in the later parts of the map in the right side to delay the Withered Knight, which is the Archer Bro towards the end, and it is strategy specific but it's a very good tool to have if you are trying to chain your DPS together. Weedy is probably the most popular option on either of these two towns. She's absolutely needed on this map regardless, so you're actually just choosing between using her for the crab lane or using her for the raw nightclub lane. She can easily handle crabs with her skill 2, but the main issue is that she needs to charge up her skill 2. So the main way that people get around that is by using Bagpipe and Suzu skill 3 stalling until she has a skill 2 ready, and then Surtur can be shifted from the corner tower to the middle tower. Doesn't make a huge difference, and to nuke the caster as per the other strats. As for how to deal with the raw nightclubs now that you don't have Weedy on the middle lane, that'll be covered in another video. Another option that's brilliantly demonstrated by Sweep is cycling back Saga and making absolutely brilliant use of the byproduct of Warfarin buff transform Scout to S3, dealing substantial true damage to the crabs in the process. There's so much intricacy in this strategy that I won't pretend to break it down, but it's an amazing proof of concept if anything. Anyways, that's mostly all I have on CC5's crabs. Suggestions for improvements to the format are always welcome in the comments below, as well as critiques on the content. You'll find links to all the clips I used in the description. Subscribe if you enjoyed it.